Welcome to another episode of Meller Notes podcast. My name is William Meller, and I'm glad to have you here for another conversation, another reflection on topics that can be relevant to your career, the way you're leading your teams, or perhaps the way you're managing your business. And today we're going to talk about three topics that summarize very well some of the big changes that are happening in this year, 2026, because we are reaching the middle of the year, so it's good to slow down and, as always, reflect on what's going on around us that is impacting or changing the way we work. As always, we want to look to the things that are happening in the present, maybe connect something in the past that also made some difference and it's so similar in the way we are living things right now. Maybe it's a very similar cycle of work, and as always, prepare ourselves to be even better for the future. Our goal is, as always, try to be at least 0.5, 1% better than the version that we were yesterday. If we can be a little bit, as I said, 0.5% or 1% better every day, every week, every year, compared only to the version that we were in the past, I am sure we are making a great progress and going to the right direction. And today we are going to cover three topics, as I said, very interesting, very connected to things that are moving or changing the way we are working and operating in 2026. The first one is related to AI workslop, or basically the amount of time that people are spending to review what is being generated by AI at their companies. The second topic, it's about the middle management position or the vanishing of that position. Companies are getting a bit more flat. They are reducing in some vertical positions, and therefore the way we work, the way we operate, it's also changing. But perhaps we already lived some kind of transformation similar to that in the past. Let's talk about that. And finally, let's talk also about the fear of changing jobs that is still affecting a lot of people. People who actually want to change, they are not happy in their current positions, but they are so afraid because of all the changes that are happening, because of all the things that is going on right now in the world, that they are just hugging in their current jobs. So if you're ready, I am ready. Let's talk about the first one right away. You open a document, a documentation, an email that is coming from a colleague, and you start reading it. After just 1 or 2 minutes, you realize that was completely and obviously created by artificial intelligence. The problem is not that. The thing is, the text is quite polished, is very well structured, very well organized. The words are perfectly positioned, but there is no essence on that. It looks perfect, but it says nothing. And basically, there is a problem that now has a name. It's being called AI Workslop, or basically, as it is described, it is AI generated work that looks good, but does not have the substance of what is proposing to solve. And this is something that is being actually call out for a couple of articles. I have one recently published by Harvard Business Review that is saying that at least 4 in 10 professionals, or to be more specifically, 41% of people, of different workers in different regions, are saying they notice this kind of trend going on. People creating work generated by AI, not reviewing what they are creating, passing the work along, and the other, or in this case, the colleague receiving the work, they need to do the review, they need to check. Sometimes they even need to validate what the other person was trying to say. And there's this research published by Harvard Business Review started by a research, a big survey from Better Up Labs with the Stanford University, and they also calculated on the cost for that, because each time it happens, the person who receives the problematic work, they need to spend an average, okay, it's not a rule, but it's the average, 2 hours just to review the mistakes, just to understand what was the other colleague trying to say or trying to accomplish with that, and then try to correct or to fix the work. The problem is that it start to pile up because people then use AI to fix the work of other colleague, and the more you filter that, the more you lose the context of what the original work was trying to say. And is in the end a problem of communication. And it has, as I said in this report, it had a cost. When you add up all those average hours and you multiply that by a company, we see that a company of 10,000 people would spend at least $9 million per year just in this kind of rework. Then we have and I always like to connect studies reports with other things that can be somehow correlated, because now very recently in June 2026 there was another publication raised by two professors from also from Harvard, Matthias Hovag and Thomas Davenport, that showed that damage do not stop on the person. You remember I said that the colleague gets something with AI. Sometimes they also try to use AI to improve that. And this filter of information goes in a way that completely makes the substance of the work or the context where it was created. And the more you add that to the company documentation, the more you add that to the company assets, the more problems you ended up having with your kind of company overall knowledge. You are adding problematic work, or to use the right expression here, you're using very bad data to increase your company information, your company knowledge. And the more you add to that, the more problematic you're going to have the data coming out in the future. Which is, of course, a bit ironic because basically everything that we are saying about AI use cases are about to increase the productivity or to save time. But in this case, we are seeing the opposite. We are seeing the AI not well used. It's not because of the two, but AI not well used in the company. It's creating more problems and therefore creating more workload for the workers to review, to check, and to validate information. Of course, I will repeat that this is not because of the tool. This is because people are not using it correctly. And that is it has a big responsibility, of course, for the company. Because if you give all your employees cars, but you don't teach them how to drive them, you're going to have problems for sure. People are going to make mistakes. So, if you're giving your employees the chance to use AI tools internally and to work with them, you need to also establish the boundaries, the guidelines. What are the limits, and what is the responsibility for everything that you are creating? And then the reflection, of course, for you as a professional, for you in your career is it doesn't matter if it's created by AI or not. If it has your name on it, it's still your responsibilities. It's yeah, again, it's your name on it. You are responsible for that. It's you who in the end will be charged if something is not going well. It doesn't matter again if you use the tool or not. So of course, everything start to become average work somehow. The people who were behind before, they don't know very well the process, or they are not very knowledgeable about something. They start using AI and maybe they gain a bit in terms of getting to this average worker. But then you have the top performers who start also using AI, the same tools, and they get down to this average work because they are just using it for the sake of use. But of course, you have then some people who are making a big difference, who understood that if they use the tool in the right way, given the right context, providing the right information, and most importantly, checking the information that they are getting out from the tool, of course, those they are not just accelerating their work, but they are also learning more in the process and getting out from this average work to be again on top of everything that they can deliver even better, using the tool in the right way. And finally, another reflection I want to call you is what I just mentioned about the work that has your name on it. I mean, everything that you create and has your responsibility in the end, it's a little piece of your CV. I usually say that your most important CV, your most important portfolio is the work that you create, because people around you see that. They see what you are capable to do, what you it's possible to get from you, and that's how you build your relevance at work. And of course, if you're using AI just to create more work but reducing your quality, in the end is again your name, your CV, your portfolio that people are seeing. It doesn't matter if you want to call this for the tool, you want to say that it's the AI fault that the work was not done in a good way. It's your responsibility to review it. And in the end, it's also part of your portfolio, all this work slope, all this bad quality work that people are perceiving. Great. And with that, connecting AI, somehow the next topic brings a little bit of this as well, or at least it has a parallel connection with artificial intelligence and the growth of that in different business. Let's talk about the vanishing of the middle manager. You join a company looking up. You check that you there was a path in the company that you could follow. You start as an analyst, you go to coordination, and maybe if you are interested on that, you go to a management position, senior management, and that was normally the plan. That was normally what was expected when you join a company. The problem is that the map is changing, and many of those steps that you are counting to have to progress your career, they are not there anymore. And it's not your fault. You're not missing something. You're not doing anything wrong. The problem is that the step itself in the company ladder, it doesn't exist anymore. What we are calling now that explain all of this context, it has a name, and the companies and the business and the markets are starting to name it the great flattening, or basically companies that are cutting management lines to, of course, decide faster. So they reduce some lines in the middle, and they made the communication move faster between senior managers and the teams executing it. Of course, it has a size, and a firm called Corn Ferry asked workers around the world, and 41% said that their company removed management levels in the last year. Only United States that was 45%. So quite a big amount of companies reducing their management lines. But there's a math here that you need to consider. um, the the people are still need to hierarchically in the hierarchy of the company, they need to still need to respond to someone, and the math of this change is of course giving the managers who stay more people to manage. So according to Gartner, this number is quite impressive to our discussion. According to Gartner, a manager today in 2026 is handling about 3 times more people than they had in 2015. So in the period of around 10 years, 3 times more people. Of course, your attention span as a manager is not the same. If you have 3 times more people, you don't have time to do the same frequent one-to-ones and to follow up with everyone in the same pace. So of course, when you do changes like that in a company, you of course think on the short term that you're going to reduce cost, you're going to accelerate the information, but in the long term, what are the consequences? What is changing the pipeline of progress and people development in your company as a result out of that? And of course, also Gartner, it's confirming that by end of 2026, we can expect that companies will cut and reduce even more. So, of course, there is a concern in the air that more management lines can be reduced, and therefore more managers. can have more people to manage or be responsible to even more or bigger teams. It's it's something that, of course, as always, you need to look to all the sides. You reduce the cost, but what is the price for that? What is the price of this reduction on the lines? Because the layers that are disappearing are exactly the layers who normally translate the strategy into the execution. There are a lot of calls saying that this filter is not good, that if you remove that, you increase the communication, you improve the communication somehow, and you reduce the need of a filter, someone who is always filtering what is coming top down and therefore what is coming from the teams as a feedback. And without the filter, you get more transparency. It has a lot of research that show that this is true as well. But you need to understand that in order to make a big company work, some of those layers are also quite important. So you need to look always to both sides here. And it's very important to understand that those movements, they are not new. They happened in the past. I mean, in the 90s, we had a big movement of companies also cutting a lot of their vertical lines of management lines. So one big example is GE with Jack Welch within the 90s cut a lot of management positions. And then those management positions, they were reestablished at some point in the different companies who followed those movements because they saw that there was some gaps that should be filled. So you need to understand this kind of cycle of work, because if you understand that, you get more prepared. What I mean is, you have your skills, your skills and abilities, your competences, and if you are still thinking that what describes you is only your title, and therefore the only way to measure the progress in your career is your next title, you already have some work to do, because you are, or basically you are measured, if I should use this word, by what you are capable to deliver. So let's say, for example, you are a project manager. You are able to put people together to transform an idea into something real. And therefore, what describes your value is not your title, it's not your project management title. It's what you can do with that, your competences, your abilities, your skills that transform something that is needed into something else that generates values to the company, and therefore you are valued, your skills are valued. It doesn't matter what they will call you. And if there's a big transformation going on and your role itself, the title of your role is changing, your competences are probably still needed. And that is the reflection I want to call you to think with me here. What are your unique competences? What made you so different that it doesn't matter what title you have? It's going to be called project manager, whatever. Or in this case, you're going to be called a people manager or something else. What are the things that you can deliver? What is your portfolio of options that you can deliver to your company or to the market? Because if we talk about being able to position yourself to be, let's say, ready for the changes, ready for the transformations, even ready for layoffs, you need to understand what you are able to deliver, not only for the company you are right now, but also to the market, also to what is being required in other places in your industry or in other industries, but is still connected to your main competences. If you bring that perspective, you bring that reflection, of course, it will be easier, but the exercise that I want to provocate is still valid. If your company reduce or do a big transformation tomorrow and your specific title, your job title doesn't exist anymore, are your competences, your skills and abilities still enough to show to the company that they should keep you? Or maybe you don't even need to show to the company that, because they already know what you're able to do. But reflect about that. Let's say that you have a layoff tomorrow and think about all the competences and skills that you have that are completely disconnected from your job title. Think about that. And maybe if you are, as I said, one of those that are still just pursuing the next title, don't thinking on the progress of your competences in general, maybe you have some work to do. Fantastic. And things are changing, things are moving, and people, of course, are being afraid on what all those movements can mean to their careers and their lives. And now it's time to talk about our next topic that is about the fear of changing jobs. You stay in a job for a long time. You are not feeling that you are developing yourself there anymore. You are not feeling that you are learning something. And you're even feeling that it's starting to be boring. You are doing the same thing for a long time. You want to move on. You want to do some progress. But you don't see that progress as a possibility to happen in your current company. Therefore, you start to look to the market and what are the other possibilities out there. The problem is you are so afraid. You are almost freezing because the world is quite crazy at the moment. We have conflicts everywhere. We have layoffs in so many different countries and industries. We have AI concerns about what would be replaced, what AI will do to different positions and jobs, that you just freeze. You just stay where you are, not because you want, but because you have some fear about movement. Americans name it and they are calling it job hugging, which is basically holding your job, not because it is good, not because you want, as I said, but because leaving is so scary right now. Let's talk about that with some data. In the beginning of this year, research from Resume Builder, they searched and they found out that more than half of the workers in the United States, more specifically 57%, see themselves as job huggers, which means that they see themselves are just staying in their current job because they have fear of changing right now. I- In during pandemic, if you remember, we had a lot of movements of people changing jobs, and for some reason, in a very bad moment for the road from what was happening in the road, people were doing movements and they were able to even raise their salaries during this movement. But the moment that we are living right now is different. We have companies calling to come back to the office, we have new policies coming, we have, as I said, AI, and people are being afraid of making those movements because they are not sure that changing will be a good idea for them, so they just hug to the job they have right now. And in June 2026, quite recently, Robert Half saw that almost half of professionals are already planning to look to a new job. So people are at least looking to the market. Majority, at least the same research that is saying that people are afraid to change, is showing us that people are looking to the job market. They see that there is something out there they could look for their careers, but still they are afraid. And of course, there's a lot of things we can reflect here, but for me, the main one is about ownership of our careers. Because I know very well there are moments where we want to be a little bit more protective, a little bit more, let's say, conservative with our movements. Sometimes in life, you have like a big change from your personal side, like you have kids, for example, coming. You are doing a big change in your life. You're moving to a new country, for example. You want at some points on your career to be more, feel at least stable, and stay in the company you are, stay in the job you are. It doesn't mean that you are stable, but at least bring this feeling of more conservative because you are not risking by yourself. You are not taking the lead of the movement. The problem is that everything always has a price, has pros and cons. You stay with your company and maybe you lose some opportunity, which can also be the truth on the opposite. You leave your company and maybe you lose a good internal opportunity to grow. So it's impossible to know what is going to happen. And exactly because it's not possible to know what is going to happen, that my reflection it's about career ownership. Because we can make mistakes in our career. That's part of the game. That's part of building a successful career. You do some movements, you made some mistakes, you learn with that, hopefully. But the problem is the attitude. If you are not changing only because of the fear, maybe you are giving to someone else, in this case, your current company, the ownership to decide by you. Because if they need to change you or your role or do any kind of transformation, they will do what is the best for the business. And you should think what is the best for your career. And therefore, there's a term that I would like to bring for this reflection that is employability. Employability is not the same as just having a job. It means the portfolio of skills, of things that you know and that you can solve that show to the world what you are ready to do as a next step. So maybe your current company does not have the opportunity for you to develop this next opportunity or to to grow in the way you are expecting to grow with this portfolio of skills that you have, but you have them and you are prepared. So anything that happen, you have this employability at least consider because you are building and growing your skills as you go. So the main reflection here, of course, back to what I was saying on career ownership, and the question I want to ask you is taking all the movements that your career had since you start working, probably you can see many of those that were not expected, the big surprises. But look to those that you made by yourself, the movements that you decide to make, the change to a new job, the application to another position, those kind of things that you took the ownership and compare with the surprises. Many times, the surprises can be something big, can be something huge that you're not expecting. But sometimes it's possible that you're going to see that the biggest changes in your life for good happen when you took the ownership of your career. So I truly respect, and now I'm talking to you that maybe is also hugging your job right now for any reason. I truly respect your moment. I already hugged in a job or stayed in a position because I was being trying to be more conservative as well with something that was happening in my life. And that was also had a lot of plus and good things that came out of that. So I respect you. So I'm not calling you to just move from super conservative and stay where you are just to, thinking completely different and maybe risk something that you should not risk. I'm calling you only to reflect, only to think. That's something that we should exercise more. And in times of AI, thinking, if we still remember, is not about chatting with a bot. It's about walking outside, staying, doing nothing for a while, and just exercising the thinking, reflecting. Are you doing what you do right now because you want and you see that there's a good connection to where you want to be in the future? Or are you just walking without direction? If the second is the case for you, don't be afraid. There are a lot of moments for many successful people that they were not super sure what to do next. But at least having the reflection, exercising the thinking about that will give you some clarity to think if your career ownership right now is in the right hands. In this case, in your hands. And with that, we close or episode for today's Maller Notes. And I would like to say thank you very much for staying for another reflection. As always, I will count on your comments, your feedbacks to know what is being good, what is not so good on those content curation that I'm preparing for you. And I will be here to hear your feedbacks and try to do the best episode by episode, just the way that I'm calling you to be the best version of yourself day after day. See you in the next episode. Bye.